Hi, 3 months ago I got paid big for a web consulting gig. And I'm 63 now, and instead of putting that several $1,000s of profit, I'm decided to invest in some vintage baseball cards. Not for nostalgia, but for profit. I'm going to see what I can do over the next few years in building a collection of 6 Hall of Famers. I want you to join me on that journey as I go through. And I use both my AI skills that I've learned from doing web consulting, and also just my crazy like a fox skills that I got the nickname from back in my softball days. So I want you to join me, go through, learn from my goodbyes, learn from my mistakes, and let's go through this process together as I build my collection, flip some other stuff to try and fund the whole process, and do it with as little out-of-pocket cash as possible. My name is Greg White, and this is Silver Fox Cards. Hey, thanks for coming and sticking with me. The business end of it, man, if you can hit subscribe, it helps me out. I would love to share this story. I'd love to have you follow me and just see how badly I screw up or how much success I have. And, you know, I'd love to hear your thoughts and your comments. So please put those down there, but do subscribe. It does help me out here. So as I am trying to put together this decision, and really I'm trying to start, I mean, I'm a few months into this as I start the videos, but I want to tell you my whole thought process of where I came up with this ideas and concepts. So, you know, the easiest thing for me would have been to take my profits from my web consulting gigs and just dump them into a big Mantle card as big as I could afford and stick it in the safe deposit box and then wait 10 years and sell it. That, you know, that would have been easy. That would have been terribly boring. I'm not that guy. So I love to be working with different things and different components, and throughout my career I've been able to say, oh, let's look at this technology and let's look at this thing and let's mash them together, and all of a sudden you've got something that's a multiplier instead of, you know, so 1 + 1 = 5, 6, 7 instead of, you know, 2. So I'm trying to apply some of the same things. And, you know, again, as you can see behind me, there's no card wall. I don't have little frame things with all my graded cards set up here. This is my office, and this is not my card room. I don't have custom storage. I got a tote behind the camera and a couple of carry cases. and so that's where I am in the journey. The Prime guy delivered me a sorting tray yesterday. So, you know, that's helping me sort my raws to what's going to be graded, what's going to be sold, and all those kinds of things. So this, I'm very early in this process. So I had to kind of come up with, what am I trying to do? So my decision was I wanted to grab, and in fact, it's modified. I started with 3 people, and then, I don't know, I ended up with 6. Okay, so I've got 6 Hall of Famers that I'm going to collect their personal collections. The parameters for those players are, I am collecting the cards from their playing days. I am not doing the memorial cards that came out in 2020 or 2024 or whatever. I say that, but I bought a couple of those cards. So, but those are not within the rules of my collection that I'm setting, and my rules are flexible, so I may change on these. So, you know, I've looked at there have been some magnificent collections presented here on YouTube, and it's just unbelievable. And I mean, they've got not only the cards, they've got the stickers and the tattoos, and all of those things are collected. And, you know, you peeled lids off of gum packs of some sort, and there was a picture, and they've collected those and have them graded. And the cards you cut off the hostess boxes, more power to them. I mean, I love that, and I think a very inclusive, every card from that player forever, every variation, that's awesome. But that's not me. So, and within my time frame, that's really the difference. Is they are collecting for a lifetime, and I'm collecting in a set time frame, and that time frame is, well, we'll talk about that in a minute. But so my parameters are, while they played, I want to collect all of the Topps cards from the years that they played, so that kind of gives you a little bit of an element of the range of when my players played. And I am trying to be a complete set of that. So I am getting their base card. If they had an all-star or a special card, or they appeared on a leader card, that's part of the set. I'm also collecting their team card from the years that they were on that team. And for guys that got traded, it was the team they were on at the beginning of the year, not the team they ended with, because they wouldn't be in the picture. So because pictures were taken at the beginning of the year. So that's kind of been the process of, okay, who was I going to get and what was that card set? So about all my 6 players, that averages, you know, they're like 34 to 50 something cards within each of the collections for those players. Next, the big question is to grade or not to grade. Am I going to just do a raw set? And I thought, nope, that's again not me. I have grandchildren that are running around here, and if they were ever to get into a raw card and it would go right in their mouth, or they would bend it, or they would throw it at somebody. So raw cards were out. Now I flip raw cards and I grade raw cards, but for my Hall of Fame collection, my 6 players, we're going graded. I know people say grading is a scam. You buy the card, not the grade. Blah, blah, blah. All right, so that's fine. But when I was kind of coming up with this, I used a lot of my background in when I built websites to flip, or, you know, basically, or acquired websites to improve and then move on and sell to someone else, is I got the buyer in mind. And so I tried to think of what will somebody want 8-10 years down the road to buy this set from me. What are they going to be looking for? And so I really came up with that grading was the way to go, and grading with as high a grade for each player as I could realistically afford would, you know, build up to that level. So within a 24-month time period, in which I'm going to go into a little bit more, I wanted to be able to collect the complete sets at the grades that I could afford. But then if I continued to flip and came up with a few nice cards that I could flip for some substantial profit, that maybe I would level up a card. And I've also found that if I, a couple of guard shows that I've gone to, if I have, you know, a graded 4 card of one of my players, and they have on the table the same card, but it's a 7 or an 8, I can very often offer them my card and the difference, you know, that we negotiate, and that way they get to keep their case full of player cards, and I get an upgrade. And so for a lot of them, I've been told at card shows, especially the smaller and the regional card shows, there are, you know, a lot of the people that are coming in just want that player and aren't ready to spend hundreds of dollars to get a higher grade. And so that's kind of what I've come into and found. So I will always be trying to push up that bottom baseline, but for every player I've got a baseline of saying, this is what I can afford for this player. And so every card I'm going to try and buy is above that level, as high as I can get at the time that I'm looking or come across it. And then we'll again continually try and push up. So there's a couple of guys in here that aren't that expensive, so most of their collection I'm looking at being 9s and 10s. So, you know, that's optimal. And so again, when we get 10 years down the road, I can come to somebody who's trying to, you know, do a complete Hall of Fame collection, or a complete collection of, you know, the top players from a specific team or whatever, and say, you know, here it is, it's all built, it's at this level, and here is the average grade across the cards, here's the grades of the key years, and we will both understand, we'll both have a baseline of value there. They may say, well, this is graded as 7, but it's not as bright as I would like to have. Okay, I understand the visual side of it, but we know the card's a 7, right? We know the corners are tight. We know the centering is tight. So you get into those elements. So that's why I decided to go graded. Love to hear your comments on that. Well, I'm not sure I love to hear your comments on that. Plenty of you will make comments about that, and that's okay, because what I have found in just this limited time of getting back into cards is that everybody has an opinion, everybody has their nuances, everybody thinks you should collect a certain way, and none of them are 100%. There are ways to do this successfully, and I'm going to try and do things a little bit different, and I'm sure there's lots of business people who have kind of come in and done this, but I've got a lot of experience with AI, and I'm going to work with AI to find cards of values that are going down, going up, whatever, that, you know, help me can time the market, find the value where you really aren't expecting the value based on all of the data that I can collect now from various sites on the internet. So putting all those things together, that's what I'm trying to do. So now let's talk a little bit about, you know, what I'm going to try and do on my time frame. Okay, so next, what we had to come up with is my time frame. So I bounced around on this, and I still don't know that I have a good answer, but my thought process is I'd like to build my 6 base in 18 to 24 months. That way I get to use inflation as a helper in increasing the value. The earlier I buy cards, you know, I mean money's being printed daily, so you know what the value of money is going down continuously, so cards are getting more expensive daily. Now I know there's bumps in the market. I know that if you buy this time of year, which happens to be November, you know, baseball cards are depressed a little bit. You know, not for the top tier guys, but for, you know, especially collection builders who are looking for commons and those kinds of things. So a little less demand this time of year in that realm. But on the flip side, and literally on the flip side, where I'm flipping cards to fund a lot of this, I don't just focus on baseball cards. So I have some basketball cards that I had from collection when I got started. I mean, back youth, you know, I think back in the 70s. So I have some basketball cards from there that some I'm going to grade, some I'm going to sell raw, but I'm going to try and flip in the market. In fact, I just sold a Stabler and shipped it this morning. That was from my childhood collection. So I'm trying to use those kinds of cards to fund buying my Hall of Fame collection, and we're going to get to that in just a moment. And I know I keep teasing you with who they are, and you're like, come on, say it. Well, there's a fast forward button down there, but figure that out. So those are kind of my strategies here, is that, you know, I'm wanting to build a good solid collection. I picked these 6 players. I'm going with the base cards, the special cards, the leader cards, and the team cards for the years that they played. And that's kind of my cutoff at this point. Now, again, will I add on one of those 2020 tribute cards that they've kind of got going out, or in fact, one that came across was, you know, a bat section was embedded in a card for one of my guys, and I got that pretty cheap. So, you know, those kinds of things I'm picking up, but I am not looking for, you know, the caps to the gum and the cutouts off of the Twinkies and the Hostess products and all of that. That's, I respect guys that collect that way. That's just not me. There's just way too many variations for a lot of these players, especially guys that played 18, 20 years, that I just don't feel like that would be a lifetime collection. That would not fit my 24-month kind of time frame to be able to build that set it in a corner, and then, you know, let time lapse, and maybe I start on another 6 or whatever I'm going to do, but just kind of go through that process. So that's where I'm at. And so I guess without further ado, I need to go through who that I've actually decided to follow and who I decided to collect. These are my personal collections. Doesn't mean I don't buy other cards. Doesn't mean I don't flip other cards. I've got, you know, even back from, I've now got grandchildren, but when my children were growing up, we went to the card shop and they bought a lot of X-Men and Marvel Universe and those kinds of cards. So I have some of those from when they moved out and left them behind. And so I also bought some of the chase cards and things that they couldn't afford. But I have some of that, so that's in my flipping pile. So I can, again, fund all of the Hall of Famers, and trying to do this with as little savings as possible. But when I have to, you know. And that's just how I'm trying to work it. So without further ado, let's talk about my 6 Hall of Famers. Okay, so let's start with the first 3 kind of fit into the same mold. And again, just, you know, as you can tell, this is not scripted, so bear with me as I kind of process this as I explain it. But the first 3 guys that really kind of came to mind were very big players while I was young in you know, in 72, 73, 74, in that era when I was spending a lot of time collecting cards and really getting into baseball and understanding how it worked, and was, you know, playing Little League and all of those things. So I picked those 3. Again, they fit my criteria as they weren't terribly expensive. They're kind of in this transition period of, there's the, you know, older Clemente, Aaron, Mays, Mantle, all of those that are in the 50s up to the 60s. And, you know, then there's the way back guys and the Ruths and the, you know, T206 cards and blah, blah, blah. So these guys started in the 60s, and then they even transitioned all the way into the 80s. So there's some crossover here into junk wax. Again, I'm staying with Topps, so I'm not getting into Don Russ and Bowman and blah, blah, blah. So, but these guys were really good at that era of their game. Now, some of you are trying to figure out right now, but we'll just get to it. So the first one is Ferguson Jenkins. Love Fergie as a pitcher. Just he was a different guy from what I had seen before. And so came in multiple Cy Youngs, was with the Cubs, then he was with the Rangers, which is kind of where I saw him a lot, and at that time I lived in Texas. So Fergie was one of the ones that I wanted to put on the list. Again, not real expensive. I mean, his rookie card now is still under $1,000. So very appealing, very good way to get into. And I said, okay, Fergie's number 1 in my collection, or not my #1 spot, but he's in my collection. Second, Jim Palmer. And the crazy reason I like Jim Palmer is I remember my mom really liked Jim Palmer. So, you know, he was in the Fabulous Hair Club, like I am. And so that kind of was one of those things that just, again, childhood memory. I thought Jim Palmer, and again, he's got the credentials to back it up. Is he the elite Hall of Fame? No, he's not. He's in that second tier. But for me, that's okay. But it's, again, it's a collection. I think there's a lot of East Coasters that will like that. He was strong with the Orioles when they won a couple of World Series. And so that he's just got a good resume. Maybe not as collectible as Nolan Ryan or Tom Seaver, but, you know, that's... their cards are too expensive, you know. So again, as I'm building this set and trying to meet my goals, that he fit very well. And the third player that I'm going to talk about is Rod Carew. So Rod, again, in that same decade, rookie card is 67, and again, he went all the way into the mid 80s. You know, 15-year career, hit 328 over that entire career. Just remarkable. He just played for teams that were awful. And back in the day when there wasn't a lot of cable, you didn't see the Twins on TV hardly ever. I mean, unless they were playing the Yankees or, you know, one of the other big teams, that was the only time you really got to see them on TV. So, but growing up, I was a smaller guy and just loved to get on base, loved to bunt for base hits and all of those kinds of things. And so Carew is my man. He was the guy that really kind of showed everybody how to do that. And back in the you know, the AstroTurf era, just really could dominate. So those are my first three. And again, they part of the reason was they started in the 60s, went to the 80s, and there's a good set in there. So we're mostly vintage, but there's a little bit of junk wax stuff in there. But it's going to build a nice collection. Each one of them have about 40 something cards in that series and set. So it makes for a good collection, and we're going to go forward with that. So my next tier go back a little further in date and age. So these guys started either 50s or on 1960, and then their careers, a couple of them moved into the mid to late 70s. So again, just good Hall of Famers. Not that top tier. Well, there's one that I'm going to argue with that should be top tier. But first one in this group is Willie McCovey. And, you know, McCovey played with Mays, so he was kind of overshadowed for a lot of his career, but still put up tremendous numbers, and you can kind of understand why those Giants teams were so good through the 60s when you kind of look at their overall roster. But I think McCovey was a big part of that. McCovey was one of those very first big players as far as, you know, early on it was 50s and 60s. There were a lot of 5'8" to 5'10" guys, and now he's much bigger than that. Just, you know, a very imposing figure at the plate, and then had the numbers to go along with that. So next is a guy that I just think, I just don't understand why he doesn't get a lot more love. He's starting to, the trends on some of the card prices are starting to go up, but that's Brooks Robinson. Played for the great Orioles teams in the 60s and 70s. Just was, you know, human vacuum cleaner was, you know, his nickname. He just did it all, and wasn't terrible with the bat. I mean, he was not, you know, a 300 hitter, but he had a little pop. He got clutch hits. He got hits when you needed them. But from the defensive side, he just, you know, he basically won the 1970 World Series for the Orioles by just making some tremendous defensive plays against the Reds that year, and just, you know, really ate them up. So Brooks Robinson is my fifth Hall of Famer that I'm going to go after and collect. And then finally, this is the one that I kind of pushed the tier on, and I thought, well, if I can get this one really solid, you know, that he's kind of my golden goose at this point, and that's Bob Gibson. So, you know, Gibson was so good, they changed the diamond for him. They actually lowered the mound because he was so dominant the years that he pitched there in the late 60s. And so when you're that good that they change the rules for you, you're pretty good. And so I know Nolan Ryan gets a lot of love, and as, you know, best pitcher ever, and his career length just supports that. But Gibson was right there, and Gibson was also a two-sport athlete. He played for the Harlem Globetrotters, so, you know, sport, okay. So, but he was a good enough athlete to be out there and show his skills in those kinds of areas. So that's my six: Ferguson Jenkins, Jim Palmer, Rod Carew, Willie McCovey, Brooks Robinson, and Bob Gibson. So make your comments. My eBay store URL is down in the description. The website will be up soon, and we'll be putting a full list of the cards that we're looking for on the checklist, putting all that together. And so, again, appreciate you. Hope you come back and follow my journey, and we'll see if we can struggle through this thing together. Thanks again. Greg White, Silver Fox Cards.